Does technical change reduce or amplify inequality? On one hand, new technologies can level the playing field by lowering costs and expanding access to tools and resources. On the other, if the returns to new technology accrue to those at the top, inequality may grow. This paper investigates whether technical change amplifies inequality by generating extremely high-paid superstar earners. The focus is on technologies that facilitate large-scale production. In a simple model where workers differ in their level of talent, scale-related technical change can give rise to a winner-take-all dynamic. As large-scale production becomes feasible, superstars in the profession expand their reach and attract an increased share of customers at the expense of lower-ranked talents. This process creates a few winners with very high incomes, but reduces the total number of jobs and has adverse effects for lesser talents. While superstar effects have been posited for some time, the question is whether we observe them in the real world. This paper studies these dynamics empirically using a historic episode of scale-related technical change, the rollout of television in the US. Before television's launch in the 1940s and 50s, local live shows were highly popular, and successful entertainers typically performed in front of several hundred individuals. But with the launch of TV, the size of the potential audience expanded by an order of magnitude. Did this technical change affect the distribution of earnings among entertainers? To estimate causal effects, the author leverages several aspects of the TV rollout. First, technological and regulatory constraints largely confined early stations to broadcasting local live shows to the surrounding area. This means the impact of early TV was highly localized and can be estimated by comparing local labor markets with and without stations. Second, the staggered rollout of TV licenses was dictated by a government deployment plan which prioritized locations based on predetermined characteristics rather than on contemporaneous economic conditions. This alleviates the concern that any estimated effects of TV are driven by other local factors. Third, the author compiles a list of blocked TV licenses. In 1948, licensing for new stations was put on hold after an error was discovered in the FCC's airwave propagation model. Though licensing resumed in 1952, this delay yields a placebo group of locations that were slated to receive TV, but narrowly missed their launches. Finally, the introduction of the videotape recorder in 1956 led to a sharp decline in local filming as stations increasingly switched to nationally sourced recorded shows. This allows the author to study how both the rise and fall of local filming affected local labor markets. To start, this figure shows that the national distribution of income in the entertainment sector was far more equal in the pre-TV era. Between 1940 and 1970, pay dispersion expanded as wages at the very top grew, mid-income jobs were hollowed out, and a larger low-paid sector emerged. At the same time, employment growth in performance entertainment stalled relative to the growth observed in other leisure-related occupations. This combined pattern of rising wage dispersion and low employment growth is characteristic of superstar effects, but can it be attributed to the rise of TV? The results from local labor markets suggest the answer is at least in part yes. Using the staggered government rollout, the author shows that the launch of a local TV station skewed the entertainer income distribution to the right. Each station roughly doubled the share of local entertainers that reached the top 1% of the US wage distribution, and incomes at the 99th percentile increased by 20%. The patterns are also consistent with fractal inequality, in which wage growth escalates toward the top of the distribution. Among this group, income gains for the top 1% were substantially larger than those for the top 10%, but smaller than those for the top 0.1%. And while incomes grew at the top, those further down in the distribution lost. TV reduced total employment in the local entertainment sector by 13%, and these losses were concentrated among mid-paying jobs. This figure shows the effect of TV on employment at different wage levels. Employment grew at the very top, declined by around 50% for those lying between the median and the very top, and grew at the bottom. This is consistent with a winner-take-all dynamic in which technical change benefits only a small number of superstars. Finally, to provide additional evidence that these effects were tied to the launch of local TV filming, these figures show there were no changes in markets with blocked licenses, and local labor market effects in licensed areas dissipated once videotaping was introduced and local filming declined. Thus, these results demonstrate how scale-related technical change can amplify inequality. Note, however, that these dynamics are not necessarily universal. Superstar effects only arise if individuals have unique sources of talent and are not substitutable. In addition, competition for talent is an important factor. In this setting, incomes for top entertainers only increased in markets with multiple competing TV stations. There was almost no top income growth in markets with only one station. This indicates that superstar effects are muted when labor markets are less competitive. To read more on this topic, you can check out the paper's references to other related work. These include papers studying the impact of technical change on labor markets, research on superstars and inequality, and finally, work on competition.